Hey guys, James here from Family of 4 in the Great Outdoors. The kids and Candace have just gone for a quick walk, and so I thought I'd take the opportunity to shoot a quick video. One of the questions that we get a little bit is, what do you guys use for power, solar? What's your 12 volt setup like? So I thought I'd do a quick video. I think our 12 volt setup is fairly simple, but I have put a bit of thought into it. And so I'll take you through what we've got and why I've chose to go that way. So starting with the battery, which is inside this battery box here, which I'll talk about in a second, but the battery itself is one of the Voltax 100 amp hour lithium batteries, and I went with a lithium setup because you get much more usable power out of it. An AGM battery or a lead acid battery, you really only got about 50% capacity. These guys say that with the lithium batteries you can basically run it flat, it doesn't matter. I've heard that you should not run it below 20%. Either way, you get a significantly bigger availability of power to you, and they're significantly lighter. I'll find the specs and put it up, but it's about half the weight of an AGM battery. So the lithium's really good, really light, and seems to have a much longer service life than the other types of batteries. So that's what I've got as far as a battery, just 100 amp hour. The things that we normally charge and use for power are charging devices. We rent our fridge, so we've got 45 litre Dometic fridge. It's not the CFX, it's just the basic one. We don't need Wi-Fi in a fridge. So that draws basically nothing. I did a bit of an experiment with this at home and ran this fridge at home off the battery just to see basically how long I could run it for. Useful thing to know as to whether I need to take solar panels or not on a camping trip. And I was able to run it for 7 days before I started to think the battery still had charge in it, the fridge was still on, but I thought, oh, it might be getting a little bit low. I think I hit the 11 volt mark on the battery meter, and I thought it was probably time to pull it and charge it. But that was, I think, 7 days, 6 or 7 days. Mind you, that was pretty ideal conditions in that it wasn't in direct sunlight, it was sitting in our lounge room at home. So there's a few things to take into consideration with that. I was running it at, I think I had it on set at 0 degrees. It was either 0 or 2, but either way it was pretty cold. Yeah, so it has a pretty good life. And if you're just running a fridge, you know, we can go away for 4 days and not have to worry about taking solar. So that's pretty good. Talking about the battery box itself, I ended up going with the Thumper Redback. The reason I did that was because of the amount of inputs that it's got in it. I was going to go with the hardcore one. They were pretty well priced, and I know some people would have them, they're really good. But I opted to go with this one because it just has significantly more inputs in it. It's a bit of flexibility. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cigarette inputs. I've got 2 USB inputs. I've also got another 2 fast charge USB cables that are on the end of a cigarette plug, so I can have 4 USB inputs in this. You've also got 3 Anderson plugs as well, which is really, really handy. So, and of course the voltmeter as well on it. So it's quite a lot of inputs or outputs that you can use with this, and that's why I ended up going with this one over the hardcore one. So to take you around a little bit, at the moment what we've got is the fridge and some lights and charging cable. So if you're charging devices for your kids, or you know, camping with a fridge or that kind of thing, this is a pretty good battery setup, and you can get away with, as I said, quite a few days without needing to top it up from solar. So We do have panels at the moment. I only really take the panels if we're away for more than sort of 5 to 7 days, probably 7 days. If we're not going for more than 7 days, I don't normally take the panels at all. Alright, so this is my solar controller. So as you can see, it's the Kickass 40 amp MPPT solar controller. The reason I went with such a big solar controller was, as I'll show you in a second, I've got 500 watts of solar, and so I wanted to be able to make use of that. So the fact that it can handle 520 watts was quite a big factor in me choosing that. Also, I like the idea of 40 amps because it's bigger and it's obviously going to charge quicker, I guess. That's really what it comes down to. It was also lithium compatible and obviously fits the battery. So this is wired in. You can see here I've made up a few little tags with Anderson plugs. So this is coming from the panels, so this feeds in here from the panels coming in to the regulator. This goes from the battery into that Anderson plug just there. And this load thing, I haven't got anything into at the moment, but you can put in things like lights or something else that's low draw, and you can use the controller to control this. So for example, if you had some lights in here, you could program the controller to turn the lights on once the sun goes down. So it would turn on automatically to give you light. So that's pretty cool. So that is what I'm using for the solar controller, and I'll take you out and show you your panels. So what I went with the panels was two 250 watt panels from King's. I thought long and hard about going the slimline panels and all that kind of thing, and in the end I figured that probably solar panels for the kind of setup that we have are probably much of a muchness, and the technology was probably going to change faster than I could get the benefit out of having the really expensive panels. So I ended up going to two cheap panels, but two of them to get the bigger wattage. So I've got 0.5 kilowatt, which is, I think, a pretty big solar setup, and it's significantly bigger than really what we need. But it essentially means that we have unlimited power. And the reason I went with such a big setup is that I didn't want to stuff around when we were camping with chasing the sun with the panels, and if we were away and it was really raining and it was really overcast, I still wanted to be able to charge up the batteries as much as I could in a really short amount of time. So we've got a short window of sun. It meant that we could have the panels out for a little bit, and in a couple of hours we'd pretty much top up the batteries back to full again. So these are wired in parallel and just goes straight back to the controller, which then feeds in the battery box. Nice and simple. So the other reason why I went with these panels and not something smaller and more portable is that, as I said before, we only use these panels when we're camping for more than 7 days, and when we're camping for that long, we're taking a full setup and we're towing a trailer as well as the ute. So space isn't really an issue, and I'm not going to be worried about pulling them around and chasing the sun around, as I said. So I can just set them up once. They're good. It doesn't really matter how big and bulky they are. As I said, we've got room to bring them, we've got room to store them, and I don't need to worry about moving them too much. Sometimes I'll set one up facing one way and one facing the other, so I can take advantage of the morning and afternoon sun. So that's another setup that I'll use from time to time, but at the moment where we are, there's a lot of trees, and so it's just easier to have these set up facing the one way to take advantage of the morning sun through the big clearing in the trees there, and that's all I need. So we've been running full power the whole week we've been here, with everything running, charging iPads, phones, fridge, lights, all that kind of thing. So that's my solar setup, and that's my 12 volt setup. So any questions, let us know, but hopefully you found that helpful. See you guys, bye.